I'm Aurora and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing a snake room tour to celebrate 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for being here. Achievement unlocked. A whole bunch of you found me from the Snake Discovery build-off and your response has been amazing. I'm feeling the love. And thank you for voting for Brian. We got 3rd place and the winners from the grand opening have been picking up their enclosures. Congrats to everyone involved. It was so fun. I think I did enough gushing in my last video though, so let's get on with the tour. I'm excited to show you what's going on at Aurora Exotics this year. Snakes are one of my biggest passions. I keep dwarf boas, ball pythons, and a few colubrids. When it comes to caging, I consider myself a recovering minimalist. When I started keeping snakes 17 years ago as a hobby, I invested in the standard minimum enclosure sizes at the time that were recommended for the animals I kept. I also wanted to be a successful boa breeder, so I copied what the successful breeders were doing. Smaller dwarf boas were kept in 41 quart racks, and larger animals were housed in 3x2 and 4x2 cages, often less than a foot high with no lighting. I believe those standards have since evolved, and I'm evolving with them as fast as I'm able to. Eventually my adult boas will all be in enclosures at least 2 feet tall for climbing space, because they really want to use their bodies if they're allowed to. For now, I'm giving them as much enrichment and exercise as I can until I'm able to move them from the old standard minimums to cages I feel will suit their needs much better in the long run. When you first enter my main snake room, you see a variety of different cages, a couple racks, and miscellaneous supplies in a fairly small, kinda ugly room. Just being honest, folks, this place is in need of renovation. Want to see what's behind this baby picture of Orion? Ta-da! My snakes deserve better than this. I'm so tired of looking at this old carpet residue on these nice hardwood floors. The work is being done this month, and then all my caging will be rearranged. Most of the snakes will go back in this room, and some will be moving to my office as well. Right now I have snakes in 3 rooms of the house, and in a minute I'll show you where they are and we'll see what they're up to. My whole setup's going to be changing soon, and it's probably time to get rid of this cheesy fabric backdrop. But that'll be in the after video. We're still in the before times. Ah, the before times. Some of my larger snakes don't currently have hides, and that's because those individuals are confident animals that don't necessarily need them to thrive. And they don't have any intense lighting that they would want to seek shelter from either, though I used some for filming. That said, all my snakes will have hides, lighting, and more climbing opportunities in their final enclosures, because I think giving them the choice is still better than not. It's a constant work in progress around here. Because the snake room is small, it's pretty easy for me to keep the temperature and humidity controlled, and the ambient temperature is usually around 75 degrees with 50 to 60% humidity. In the winter, I use a humidifier and spray enclosures more often. I have several types of enclosures that have different types of heat, including heat tape, heat mats, and radiant heat panels, all hooked up to a variety of thermostats. I've been dabbling and experimenting with options for years, and I'll make videos about my favorite products eventually. I usually have a fan going for air circulation in the room as well. The only somewhat bioactive enclosure I currently have belongs to Draco, my bearded dragon, though he doesn't have live plants yet. He finally got his upgrade to a 4x2x2 this year, and he's loving life. I've done several other bioactive cages in the past, and you'll see many more from me in the future. As long as we're out here in the living room with Draco, let's take a look just below him at my Okiti corn snake Nathara, my first snake. I got her as a tiny baby in 2004 during my first year of college, so she's an old girl now. She has cataracts in both eyes and a benign fatty tumor on her hip, but she's still as sweet and curious as ever. Heading back in the main snake room, the first cages you see are these 3 on a rack. On the bottom we have Jupiter, my rockstar leopard boa most of you know and love. He's been a father twice here, and we're gearing up for a 3rd litter hopefully this season. He makes beautiful babies, and he's just an overall stud. Above Jupiter is Orion, a Type 2 anerythristic boa and my first ever holdback from 2010. I switched him to newspaper for easy cleaning because he's been passing urates a lot recently. I turned his hide upside down and added cocoa blocks for some extra texture and humidity, and I accidentally litter box trained him. That's pretty cool, and maybe something to explore more in the future, but I hate how ugly the newspaper is. Orion is gorgeous though. Type 2 aneries get blacker as they mature, similar to IMG boas, but they still keep the pattern. The cage on top houses Desert Ross, formerly Desert Rose, a hypo pure Sonoran possible het leopard boa. I'm embarrassed to say he still has a slightly lumpy nose from rubbing it years ago, but because it's cosmetic and no longer causing him harm, I've been dragging my feet on getting the surgery done. I miss sharing him though. He's a beautiful and healthy snake otherwise. Boa nose rubbing is a topic I'll cover in a future video for sure, and when I do take Ross in for lump removal, I'll bring you on that journey too. It's an annoying and mostly preventable problem, but something a lot of boa keepers have to deal with from time to time. On top of the rack are some supplies and spare fake plants and things, and if we turn to the left, there's a very disorganized closet and a bag of snake sheds, because I can't bring myself to throw away the nice ones. It's like my snakes are giving me presents. You don't just throw a gift in the garbage. Unless that gift is full of poop. I'm looking at you, Nathara. Behind the rack of cages, we have the 41 quart rack that my boyfriend Jordan built for me back in 2013. That was when I temporarily moved into his apartment in Burbank, and I shipped my snakes with me, but not my cages. The reason for the cardboard is to prevent pushing or nose rubbing in the gap between the bin and the board because it removes the temptation a little. I want to phase this rack out completely though, because I don't think the height of these tubs is really appropriate for most pet snakes, but it's what I have for now and it's what many people still consider standard care, so I'm using it until I can upgrade. Starting from the top, we have my holdback boas from last year's Snek Trek Deep Snake 9 litter. You'll see more of them in another video soon, so make sure you're subscribed. Moving down we have Summer, a holdback from my Four Seasons litter in 2019. She's in shed and healing from a little nose rub, so I'm leaving her be for now, but here's a recent photo. Yeah, love this girl. The first ball python I have to show you is Fruit Loop. He's a gorgeous Candino pied, and I was lucky enough to grab him last year before his morph basically doubled in price. He'll be pairing with Diane, the pastel het candy in the bin just below his. This will be my first time breeding egg layers, and I'm super excited to go through the whole process. I'd like to get a little more food into both of them first, but then they should be good to go. Below Diane, we have Scar and Noodle Puppy, two adorable normal ball pythons I adopted a couple years ago. You'll see them in their own video soon. At the bottom of the rack is a special snake I named Weirdo. Weirdo is a scaleless Everglades rat snake I adopted last year. He's afraid of everything, so I temporarily moved him from a larger enclosure to this bin in hopes of taming him more easily. I don't have breeding plans for this guy, I just think he'll be a really cool pet if I can get him to calm down. The biggest rack in the room currently holds my adult female boas and a small male. I've started displaying some stickers from other reptile folks too. On top, we have the lovely Rose, a pure Sonoran hypo possible het leopard from pairing Desert Ross and Tiamat. She'll be breeding with Jupiter this year for a chance at hopefully producing my first leopard boa babies if she proves out to be het. Cross your fingers for me, I've been chasing this a long time. Below Rose is Luna, a stunning example of a type 2 anerythristic ghost, and mother to the Deep Snake 9 litter. She's Orion's daughter, and selling her mother Kitty is one of my biggest regrets, because this line of Nicaraguan hypomelanism is amazing, underrated, and somewhat hard to find. Luna is a queen. Luna will be breeding with Tempest this year. Tempest is a gorgeous type 2 anerythristic motley boa, and together they will make 4 different kinds of beautiful black, gray, and white snakes. Unfortunately, Tempest is in shed right now and looking a little dull and more brown than he really is. I like this bin setup, but I hate the placement and accessibility. I'm really looking forward to rearranging all my cages in a better way. Next to Tempest, in the biggest cage, is my favorite snake. She's also in shed, but here's footage of her not in shed. Tiamat is a pure Sonoran possible het leopard boa and the sweetest snake I have ever known. She's technically a dwarf boa of one of the smaller localities and species, even though she's an outlier at over 7 feet. She's not quite as thick as I'd like her to be going into this breeding season, so she may not be paired this year, but we'll see how it goes. As a side note, this cage was supposed to come with a shelf to act as both a climbing and hiding place, but they never sent the shelf. I emailed them, they apologized, and they said they'd send one separately, but it never came and I gave up. I guess I'll make something for her myself. Her final cage will be at least 6 feet wide with a fully decked out background though. She deserves it. In the corner is some more storage space, and we have the fan, and then this rack. There are only 3 snakes here, including 2 that you haven't met yet unless you follow me on Instagram, which you totally should by the way. Let's start with Lita, my last available snake for sale from the Deep Snake 9 litter. She's awesome, and unfortunately in shed as well. I'll feature her more in my holdback video because she may still end up being one unless someone decides they want her more than I do. Then we have Bean, a lovely vanilla het pied, possible het clown ball python. I think vanilla is an underrated subtle gene, and I like what it does stacked with others. So much potential, and she's such a pretty snake. Up at the top we have Pumpkin, an Enchi Orange Dream het pied girl, and my little problem child. She's doing great now, but she didn't want to eat consistently for a long time. Then when she decided food was good again, she had an anal prolapse. It was my first time dealing with one, and I was able to get everything back where it was supposed to be, but I still have her in a simple setup to keep an eye on things. She's a very curious and personable ball python though, and none of this ordeal seems to have fazed her at all. I'm excited to see her grow into a big healthy adult, despite her slow start. I have 4 more snakes to show you on this tour, but they're not in this room. They're in my old office. This is also where Pixel lives. Hi Pixel! On one end of the table we have Sock, my boyfriend's anerytheristic corn snake.
Snake.
She's still really sassy, though I'm sure she'll calm down a bit more as she gets bigger. She's adorable. On the other end is Nessie, my red-bellied water snake. She's in shed too. I adore this snake, but she hasn't been eating regularly, so she's still tiny, and I think she needs some companions. Water snakes and garter snakes tend to be communal, and I regret not getting a few from the beginning. I plan to have her and her future friends in a beautiful polydarium someday. Water snakes are so underrated. And finally, it's time to introduce you to the newest kids, and my latest obsession. Meet Dinah and Felix, my Tanzanian striped house snakes. I am thrilled to have these awesome animals. I believe they are the smallest house snakes available, reaching only 3 feet or so, and while they're classified as colubrids, they act like tiny pythons. They even change color from day to night. I could say so much more, but I will save it for a future video all about them. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell so you don't miss it. I hope you enjoyed this tour! Let me know in the comments below which snakes of mine you want to see more of in the future. Things are constantly changing and improving around here, and I know someday I'm going to look back on this video and be like, wow, look how far I've come. But I've got a lot of work to do. Thanks again for joining me on my journey, and I'll see you in another video soon! Hi, I'm Aurora, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing a snake room tour, and now it got dark. Come back, light, come on. Okay. My whole setup will be changing My whole setup will be changing. I really do have a lot of fun filming this stuff. As hard as it is for me to do in a timely manner, I'll get better at it. Promise. Thanks again for joining me on my journey, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks again for joining me on my journey, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks again for joining me on my journey, and I'll see you in the... Excuse me. Sometimes I'm kind of a guy. Boom! Done.